Okay, somebody made a comment somewhere, yeah, I think on Facebook, about using a hoop. And I usually don't use a hoop. And I just wanted to say that just because I usually don't use a hoop doesn't mean I won't use a hoop. And why did I use a hoop here was really because there were two things that were different from what I normally do. One was I was working on a single layer of fabric. And when I don't add another layer to the back, it's less stable. And the reason that I did that is because of the kind of fabric that I'm sewing on, which is a much tighter weave. It's a little more stable to handle, and so instinctively I just went ahead and stitched on it. It's not probably my fabric of choice, but in any case it doesn't move around a lot, so it just seemed like I could handle it. The other thing is that with this new vibrating kind of motif, I'm starting to use a lot of embroidery that's spanning a larger area that's just all solid stitch. And when that happens, all that stitch is kind of a thickness on the cloth, and it tends to pucker, or it tends to sort of have a different tension, as opposed to just a few lines of embroidery which really don't pull on the cloth too much. So because I've been taking that direction, I'm finding that the hoop holds the cloth taut, and when I'm doing very, very large solid areas of stitch, it just seems to be easier, or it seems to have a better result. And so I haven't really done a lot of that in the past, but I find in this instance, with that single layer of cloth and the large amount of stitch, it was making sense. The hoops are here. Somebody gave me a whole set of them, and I probably wouldn't have bought plastic hoops, but actually they're nice and smooth. And when I put very thin fabric in them, they're actually gentler on the cloth, I think. The other thing was this piecing on the fly, and I probably didn't say that clearly, but if you've got something, I needed to make this bigger, first of all, and I didn't mention that the original strip that I put the figure on was not long enough to make it into a bookmark or a book mat. So I used the same method as I described in the video, which is I folded the edges back on the original, on either end, and then I took 2 squares of fabric and folded the edge back and did the same sort of thing. When you fold the edge back, it's as if you're almost ironing around a template, but in this case it was just one edge. So I did extend the center strip with 2 pieces on the end, and then I extended that whole piece by folding the edges under and taking 2 pieces with folded edges, and again using that face-to-face overcast method that I used in the paperless piecing. So you can just do this and keep extending. You don't have to be that exact in your piecing if you just want to. Well, it's sort of like my hand piecing, where I just sort of find a straight edge and do a running stitch seam. I mean, the same kind of free-form method of folding both edges back and stitching them together in this paperless piecing method face to face is just, I could just actually now keep going. So that's something to think about sometimes, because sometimes you just have cloth around, you want to keep making it bigger, and you don't have to work with squares or templates of shapes. You could just use pieces of cloth that have edges that can be stitched together. The back, you can see a little bit of how that's done, or how that was done. And of course the cloth that I extended it with is very thin. And I'm going to fold that underneath and use it both as a sort of very tiny piping looking edge, and also one side can be sort of the filler and the second side can be the back. So I'll be using that cloth as well.